we humans we have mirror neurons and we tend to just repeat the same narratives all the time. Striker versus grappler in a stylistic matchup. This guy's got knockout power in both hands. Winner gets the title shot. Boom. Oh my God. Big right hand, ground and pound. It's all over. Wow. We got a new contender in the featherweight division. Like, if you hear that enough, that starts to dominate your thinking. There's only 6 narratives that they use in mainstream corporate television. Yeah. And then they interchange those 5 or 6 narratives, and then they draw a certain conclusion. It's only 5 or 6 conclusions. And they say, what's next for this guy? And then we have that talk. And if you do that, it traps you. And this happens in politics. This happens in music. This happens in news. You become trapped. The narratives dominate your thinking to the point that you don't have the ability to think in other ways. And really, for me, looking at the same things over and over, 2 human beings fighting. I didn't want to just be, a machine, like a mechanical man, as Bruce Lee called them, where you just do the same thing. He did a thing. You say, distance management. Another thing happens. You say, there's a volume striker. This other thing happens. He goes, those leg kicks are going to really add up. Like, if you do that, you become that. Yeah. And I just didn't want to do that. So hundreds of shows later, I examined things in as many different ways as possible. The musical element to it, rhythm and sound, knowledge, sight, the nervous system, poetry. How does it relate to cooking? Like, everything possible. And by doing that, I started to see it different. And then it becomes your job in 3 years or 4 years or 5 years. If you're seeing something, can you develop a language with which to get that across in a way that's meaningful to somebody? I don't care if this guy gets a title shot next. I'm happy for him, but I don't care. I care about martial arts. I care about the moments. I care about the lessons that I can learn by what they've overcome and how we can apply those lessons to life. I really don't care if this guy's the 6th ranked, whatever. It's irrelevant to me. And I think it's irrelevant to most people. If they truly looked at the beauty of the moment for what it is, they wouldn't require tool mechanisms like belts and titles and rankings. Those are mechanisms intended to hold your attention long enough for you to separate you from your money and keep you consuming a product. But the dream would be that you then go beyond those things. You don't. Israel Adesanya will tell you the belt doesn't matter. Why? Because he's transcended the idea of this trinket. What is a belt? Well, a title is something given to somebody who's apparently won some math of a ranking. That title is then represented with a belt. That belt is an object. Like, none of this matters. None of this matters. And it shouldn't matter. It only matters because sometimes we don't really think about things. We just sort of plod along and people tell us what matters and we just go with it. Most of the things that are measured are not measured because they're important. They're measured because they're easy to measure. And then we assume they're important, right? This is how the universe works, right?
Yeah.
And so you could absolutely just do the thing. Show up, striker versus grappler, do your tie, talk nice to the producer, whatever. You 100% can do that. I don't think you're going to find as much joy in it as if you explore something. Of course, fighting is eternally complex and impossible to understand. If you study it for 1,000 more years, when you look at it today, well, you think we understood it in a rudimentary way. We didn't even understand how certain senses work and how learning works and what the eye sees and how the brain processes information at the speed, all of these things, right? We know that if we studied anything for 100 more years, that would be true. And so then, since that is true, what we know today is pretty much rudimentary nonsense, right? So the goal then becomes, rather than fall into the rudimentary nonsense and take the paycheck and play along and be a cog, what could we do possibly with our learning and exploring of this, whether it be making glasses, technology, martial arts, football, Barbie, creating your own soda brand, whatever it is. The goal in life is to go beyond and learn more and actualize, see what's possible before your death. Leave something meaningful if possible, not just to play the role that you saw this play. And so that to me has been a key driving force as this whole thing has made sense. And now I have a successful business. I'm going to deprioritize money in business and prioritize exploration, curiosity, and learning and growth. And if I do that, my daughter will be taken care of, because I've learned that by doing that, most people are not doing that.
Yeah.
And when you do something most people don't do, the scarcity has inherent value.
Yeah.
So and I could say to anybody, if you are making TikTok content or whatever it is you do, doing what everyone else is doing is not going to work for you. Innovation is always greater than imitation, always. And so I'm in a good. I just happen to be. We got to get together during a really great moment where a lot of things are making a lot of sense to me. It's 18 months from now, the whole thing may make no sense again, because the world's constantly changing. And like you said, you have to understand how and when to pivot. And when you pivot slightly wrong, how to pivot again.